In the beginning, the cradle of civilization. In the darkness before memory, before the first names were spoken, the rivers of Mesopotamia flowed quietly under the eternal sky. The Tigris and the Euphrates carved their silver lines through the plains, bringing life to a land that would one day be called Sumer. It was here, some 6,000 years ago, that humankind took a leap so great it almost defied reason. From the scattered tribes of hunter-gatherers emerged cities, organized, engineered, luminous with fire and story. Writing was invented. Temples rose like mountains of baked clay. Kings ruled, and gods were said to walk among them. Historians call this the birth of civilization, but the Sumerians themselves told a different story. They claimed they did not invent civilization, they were taught it. Their teachers, they said, were the Anunnaki, those who came down from the heavens. Who were the Anunnaki? To later generations, they would be remembered as gods. To some modern thinkers, they were flesh and blood visitors, creatures of knowledge, technology, and power beyond imagining. And to skeptics, they were simply the poetic imagination of a people striving to explain the mysteries of their world. Whatever the truth, one thing is certain. The Sumerians believed that everything they possessed, kingship, wisdom, writing, even their own existence, had been granted to them by these divine beings. The world before time. Before the Sumerians built their temples, the world was chaos. According to the myths carved on ancient tablets, the universe was once a vast ocean called Namu. From that primeval sea emerged Anu, lord of the heavens, and Ki, goddess of the earth. Their union gave birth to Enlil, the god of air, who separated heaven and earth, creating the space in which humans would live. But Enlil and his kin were not alone. A council of powerful entities, later called the Anunnaki, assisted him in shaping the world. They assigned duties to each god, one to watch over waters, another to measure the stars, another to guard the underworld. And when the world was ready, they turned their gaze toward the creation of humanity. The creation of mankind. In one surviving Sumerian text, the gods complain of labor. They had built canals, tilled fields, and carried heavy baskets of soil. Tired of the toil, they approached Enki, the god of wisdom, and demanded relief. Enki's solution was bold. Let us create beings to carry the load. He mixed the clay of the earth with the blood of a slain god and shaped the first human. Thus, man was born, not as a free creature, but as a servant to the divine. The tone of the myth is strikingly different from later creation stories. Here, humans are not the centerpiece of the cosmos, but the byproduct of a labor dispute among celestial beings. And yet, these same humans would later be chosen, taught, and elevated by their makers. The cities of the gods. The Anunnaki were said to dwell in the great cities of Sumer: Uruk, Eridu, Nippur. Each city had its own temple, a ziggurat, described as a link between heaven and earth. Priests ascended its steps not merely to pray, but to meet with the gods who descended from the stars. Inscriptions refer to shining ships and heavenly chariots. To the ancient mind, such language might have meant divine light. To modern readers, it hints at something mechanical, metallic, engineered. Was it poetry or memory?
Among these cities, Eridu was the first, the city of the first kings. According to the Sumerian king list, kingship descended from heaven there after the Great Flood. The list speaks of rulers whose reigns lasted thousands of years, blending myth and history in a single breath. Archaeologists have indeed found multiple layers of settlement beneath Eridu, stretching back to 5000 BC. But what they have not found are the beings who supposedly ruled before man. The teachers of civilization. The Sumerians credited the Anunnaki with everything that made their world advanced: writing, agriculture, mathematics, astronomy, law. They even named their city plans after constellations, aligning temples to the path of the stars. To them, the Anunnaki were not distant deities. They were administrators, engineers, scholars. Each had a domain. Enki, the wise one, master of fresh water and knowledge. Enlil, lord of air and storms, ruler of destiny. Ninhursag, mother goddess, the life-giver. Inanna, queen of heaven, goddess of love and war. The myths describe meetings of the gods, records kept, decrees issued, almost like a celestial government. If these were mere symbols, they reveal a people fascinated by structure and order. If they were more than symbols, they suggest contact with something far beyond the human. They descended in shining splendor, clothed in radiance. Their voices were thunder, their knowledge infinite. They taught mankind the arts of building, the secrets of the stars, the laws of the land. This passage from the Enki and the World Order tablet has fueled endless speculation. Was it an allegory for the rise of priestly elites? Or the memory of a literal descent of beings who brought civilization overnight? The Age of Kings. From about 3000 BC, the city of Uruk flourished under King Gilgamesh, himself said to be 2/3 divine, 1/3 mortal. His epic tells of friendship, pride, and the search for immortality, but hidden within are echoes of older myths: the flood, the god's anger, the longing for eternal life. Gilgamesh's journey to meet with Utnapishtim, the flood survivor, mirrors stories from across the ancient world. It suggests that the Sumerians inherited legends far older than their cities. Perhaps, as some claim, these tales preserve the memory of a forgotten age when gods and man shared the earth. The flood and the fall. Every civilization tells of a flood. The Sumerian version is among the earliest. When mankind became noisy and multiplied, Enlil grew angry and decided to destroy them. But Enki, sympathetic to his creation, warned a man named Zuyusudra. He built a great boat, preserved life, and survived the deluge. Afterward, the Anunnaki returned, bestowing kingship anew. This reset in the myths parallels real events. Archaeologists have found flood layers in southern Mesopotamia dating roughly to 2900 BC. Coincidence or memory of a cataclysm? The enigma of knowledge. What made the Sumerians so advanced so suddenly? They understood irrigation, metallurgy, and celestial cycles with uncanny precision. Their base 60 counting system still defines modern timekeeping: 60 seconds, 60 minutes. They mapped the movements of Venus centuries before other cultures could measure the heavens. How did a civilization with no known predecessors achieve such leaps? Mainstream scholars point to incremental progress, human ingenuity sharpened by the fertile environment of Mesopotamia. But those drawn to the Anunnaki theory see something else, an infusion of external knowledge, perhaps even extraterrestrial. The question that echoes. The tablets speak. They whisper of beings who shaped us, who ruled us, who left. Did they ever exist, or are they the shadows of our own forgotten greatness?
The gods of Sumer. Anu, the Sky Father. At the pinnacle of this celestial hierarchy was Anu, the father of the gods. He resided in the highest heaven, the abode of the divine, a realm beyond human comprehension. Anu's authority was absolute. He commanded the skies, appointed rulers, and presided over the assembly of gods. Yet he was distant. Rarely did he descend to the earth, and even when he did, his presence inspired awe and fear. It was not a personal relationship, but an overwhelming awareness that humanity was subject to something far greater than itself. Enlil, the lord of air and destiny. Below Anu was Enlil, the god of air, storms, and rulership. He is perhaps the most feared of the Anunnaki. He could bring destruction with a breath and fertility with a whisper. The myths describe him as strict, sometimes cruel, often decisive. Enlil's role was crucial. He divided the lands, assigned cities, and ensured order among both gods and men. When humanity became noisy, Enlil's anger led to the Flood, the Great Reset. Yet without Enlil's authority, civilization could not have been organized. Enki, the Wise One. Contrasting Enlil's strictness was Enki, lord of water, wisdom, and creation. He is the god who sided with humanity, guiding them, teaching them, sometimes defying his fellow gods to protect mankind. It was Enki who advised the building of irrigation canals, the cultivation of crops, and the development of law. According to myth, he also engineered the first humans from clay. His character is complex, mischievous, clever, compassionate, and infinitely resourceful. Through Enki, the Sumerians conveyed a fundamental idea: knowledge is a gift, but it carries responsibility. Ninhursag, the Mother Goddess. Life according to Sumerian belief was incomplete without Ninhursag, the Mother Goddess. She nurtured humans and animals, overseeing fertility and the cycles of nature. Her temples were places of birth, growth, and protection. Ninhursag represents the balance between creation and sustenance, a reminder that civilization is not only built with knowledge, but maintained through life itself. Inanna, Queen of Heaven. Perhaps the most enigmatic was Inanna, goddess of love, war, and political power. She embodies contradictions, passionate yet ruthless, seductive yet strategic. Inanna traveled between heaven and earth, venturing into the underworld, confronting death itself. Her myths reveal a society grappling with complex ideas, desire, ambition, power, and mortality. Inanna's legacy is particularly intriguing to modern theorists. She is described as visiting humans, interacting directly, even shaping the fates of kings. Inanna did not merely exist in temples or myths. She acted, she decided, she shaped, and through her the lines between God and man blurred. The assembly of the gods. The Anunnaki were not solitary figures. They convened in councils, debated, disagreed, and even schemed against each other. Tablets describe assemblies where decisions about humanity were made, the assignment of kings, the allocation of resources, and occasionally the punishment of humanity. This structure suggests a hierarchy resembling a government more than mythology. It is precisely this bureaucratic complexity that has led some modern theorists to speculate. Were the Anunnaki extraterrestrial administrators managing early human civilizations with purpose and precision? Textual evidence. Cuneiform tablets. The stories of the gods are preserved in thousands of clay tablets. From the Epic of Gilgamesh to Enki and the World Order, these inscriptions offer tantalizing glimpses into a worldview both alien and familiar. They describe rituals, divine interactions and cosmic events with meticulous detail. One tablet reads, "He, Enki, instructed the king in all things, how to measure the stars, how to construct a temple, how to guide the people." These words imply a direct transfer of knowledge from divine beings to humans, a theme that resonates throughout the Anunnaki narrative.
Divine technology. Some tablets hint at technology, chariots that fly, tools of light, metal from the heavens. Skeptics dismiss these as metaphorical language, yet proponents of ancient astronaut theory argue that these descriptions are consistent with something more literal, mechanical or technological devices beyond the comprehension of the Sumerians. Could the Anunnaki have been advanced beings, using the vocabulary of the day to describe the tools of their craft? Or were these stories purely symbolic, attempts to explain the mysteries of the cosmos in human terms? Interaction with humanity. Unlike many mythologies where gods are aloof, the Anunnaki actively engaged with humans. They taught, guided, and sometimes corrected their creations. Priests acted as intermediaries, receiving instructions directly from the divine. Kings were often portrayed as semi-divine, bridging the mortal and immortal worlds. This close relationship between gods and men is a hallmark of the Anunnaki myths. It reinforces the notion of deliberate, purposeful intervention in human affairs. Summary of Chapter 2. The gods of Sumer, Anu, Enlil, Enki, Ninhursag, Inanna, were complex, powerful, and intimately involved in shaping human destiny. Whether viewed as literal beings, allegorical figures, or advanced extraterrestrials, their influence on the development of civilization is undeniable. Through their actions, myths, and decrees, the Anunnaki left a legacy that continues to intrigue, inspire, and provoke debate. The descent from the heavens. If Chapter 2 introduced the gods of Sumer, Chapter 3 explores one of the most provocative claims of ancient history, the descent of these beings from the heavens. The Anunnaki, according to the myths, did not originate on Earth. They arrived, bringing knowledge, order, and civilization. This narrative, repeated across tablets and epics, has fueled speculation for centuries. Were these stories purely symbolic, or could they reflect real encounters? The sky beings. The Sumerians described the Anunnaki as radiant, powerful, and otherworldly. Tablets often mention shining ones, or beings from the far heavens, whose arrival was marked by awe-inspiring phenomena. Some texts speak of vehicles of light, wings, or chariots that could traverse the sky. To modern readers, these descriptions invite imagination. Advanced beings arriving in technologically advanced craft. To Sumerians, they were gods, wielding incomprehensible power. Whatever the interpretation, the tales convey a singular idea. These beings were not bound by earthly limitations. Nibiru and the Anunnaki. One modern theorist, Zecharia Sitchin, interpreted these texts to suggest that the Anunnaki came from a mysterious planet called Nibiru. According to his research, Nibiru follows a long elliptical orbit, appearing near Earth every 3,600 years. He argued that the Anunnaki arrived during these passages, mining gold and other resources and imparting knowledge to humanity. Sitchin's theories remain controversial. Critics highlight linguistic misinterpretations and lack of archaeological evidence. Yet the narrative resonates with a simple idea. Humanity's sudden leap in knowledge and civilization may have had outside influence. Arrival and settlement. According to myth, the Anunnaki first landed in the southern plains of Mesopotamia. Eridu, considered the first city, became their headquarters. There they established temples, assigned kingship, and began the process of teaching humanity.
The Sumerians emphasized order and structure. Each Anunnaki had a specific role, overseeing agriculture, law, water management, and celestial observation. Their presence, it is said, was both tangible and awe-inspiring. Mankind revered them as rulers, protectors, and sometimes as stern disciplinarians. The first kings. One of the most striking features of Sumerian history is the king list, a record of rulers whose reigns span thousands of years. The earliest kings, it claims, reigned before the flood, and kingship descended from heaven. Modern scholars interpret these reigns as symbolic, yet they hint at a recurring theme. Leadership was seen as a gift from divine visitors. The Anunnaki, according to myth, were administrators of civilization, assigning rulers and ensuring the continuity of human society. The question lingers, if these accounts were literal, who were these beings, and why did they come? Technology beyond their time? Texts describe tools of the gods that seem to transcend what humanity could have built. Some scholars point to mentions of machines, wings, and fire from the sky as evidence of advanced technology. From the perspective of ancient astronauts theory, the Anunnaki were engineers, structuring cities, controlling water, and teaching mining techniques. For example, gold mining in Mesopotamia is repeatedly mentioned. According to Sitchin, this was not mere mythology, but a record of a sophisticated operation conducted under divine supervision. Even if metaphorical, the repetition of these motifs suggests their central importance to the Sumerians' understanding of civilization. The role of Enki and Enlil. Enki, the god of wisdom, is consistently described as the liaison between the Anunnaki and humanity. He guided kings, advised priests, and sometimes intervened to prevent catastrophe. Enlil, by contrast, enforced laws, punished disobedience, and occasionally instigated destruction, including the flood. Their contrasting roles emphasize a balance, knowledge and compassion versus order and discipline. The Sumerians understood that civilization was fragile and required both guidance and governance.
The Flood Revisited. The Great Flood, a recurring theme in Mesopotamian myth, is intimately tied to the Anunnaki's descent. Some tablets describe the gods' frustration with humanity's noise and hubris. Enlil decided to wipe out mankind, while Enki warned a chosen man, Ziusudra, who survived by building a large vessel. The narrative suggests deliberate intervention, the Anunnaki shaping human destiny directly. Could the flood story be a memory of a real catastrophic event witnessed by beings more technologically advanced than humanity? Celestial influence. Sumerian texts frequently tie events on Earth to the movements of stars and planets. The Anunnaki's actions were often coordinated with celestial phenomena. Some modern researchers argue this indicates astronomical knowledge far beyond what one would expect for the time. Whether symbolic or literal, it shows the Sumerians' deep awareness of the heavens, possibly inspired or even instructed by the Anunnaki. Cultural transmission. The Anunnaki, through their contact with humanity, shaped more than cities. They influenced culture, language, and religion. The myths, the kingship, the knowledge of irrigation, astronomy, and law all point to a structured transmission of knowledge. Even after the Anunnaki departed, their legacy persisted. The foundations of human civilization were laid, and humanity was left to continue building on this extraordinary inheritance. Summary of Chapter 3. The descent of the Anunnaki from the heavens, whether literal, metaphorical, or somewhere in between, forms the backbone of Sumerian myth. They arrived, they taught, they ruled, and they departed, leaving humanity with the tools, knowledge, and structure to flourish. As we explore further in Chapter 4, the question arises, were they extraterrestrial beings, divine entities, or simply ancient humans whose capabilities have been mythologized beyond recognition?
The alien theory. As we move deeper into the story of the Anunnaki, one question haunts historians, archaeologists, and theorists alike. Were these beings merely myth, or were they visitors from another world? The ancient astronaut theory, popularized in the 20th century, suggests that many of humanity's earliest accomplishments may have been guided by extraterrestrial intelligence. Nowhere is this idea more compelling than in Sumer, where the gods, their descent, and their technology are meticulously recorded. Zechariah Sitchin and Nibiru. One of the most famous proponents of the theory is Zechariah Sitchin, whose work interprets Sumerian cuneiform in unconventional ways. According to Sitchin, the Anunnaki came from a distant planet called Nibiru, which enters the inner solar system every 3,600 years. His theory argues that these beings needed gold to repair their home planet's atmosphere, which is why they initiated mining operations on Earth. Humans, he claimed, were genetically engineered by the Anunnaki to serve as laborers, blending divine DNA with early hominids. Critics dismiss Sitchin's conclusions, citing translation errors and lack of concrete evidence. Yet the narrative persists because it fits a pattern. Sudden leaps in technology, the earliest writing, and unexplained knowledge all appear in Sumerian civilization nearly simultaneously. Ancient technology described in myths. Many of the Sumerian texts describe tools and devices that sound unusual for the time. Words like shining metal, vehicles of fire, and wings in the sky fuel speculation that the Anunnaki possess technology unknown to humanity. For example, mining operations in Africa and Mesopotamia, knowledge of astronomy precise enough to map Venus and other celestial bodies, construction of cities aligned with the stars. Were these descriptions metaphorical, or were they literal accounts of machines and devices operated by beings from another world? Genetic engineering hypothesis. Another cornerstone of the alien theory is the idea that humans were genetically engineered. The Sumerian creation myths speak of Enki mixing clay with the blood of a god to create man. Proponents suggest this is a coded description of advanced bioengineering, using existing hominids as a base and modifying their DNA. From this perspective, humanity's sudden intellectual and cultural leap is not entirely surprising. Agriculture, writing, astronomy, and organized religion appear in a compressed time frame, almost as if someone or something catalyzed progress. Cross-cultural parallels. Belief in sky gods and celestial visitors is not unique to Sumer. Across the globe, ancient civilizations recount beings descending from the heavens. The Dogon of Mali described knowledge of Sirius B, a star invisible without telescopes. The Maya had deities linked to Venus and solar cycles. Egyptian texts speak of Ra descending from the sun. The repetition of this motif strengthens the argument for a shared phenomenon, whether literal contact or collective mythic imagination. The critics speak. Mainstream historians argue that attributing human progress to extraterrestrials underestimates human ingenuity. Sumerians were inventive, resourceful, and adaptive. Agriculture, writing, and cities could emerge naturally from complex social interaction. Yet even skeptics acknowledge an anomaly. The rapid development of cities, government, and advanced technology appears abrupt when compared to preceding human societies.
Could this anomaly simply reflect lost evidence? Or might it hint at something extraordinary? Enki and the engineers. Enki, the god of wisdom, is central to the alien theory. He is consistently described as teaching humans the arts of civilization, constructing irrigation and canals, organizing labor and administration, understanding celestial movements and mathematics. Proponents argue that these acts resemble a modern engineer training apprentices rather than a deity delivering moral lessons. The precision in Sumerian urban planning and the astronomical alignments of ziggurats appear to support this interpretation. The Flood, revisited through a technological lens. The Flood, a recurring myth, can also be seen in a new light. Some theorists suggest that descriptions of catastrophic weather events, storms sent by gods, or ships saving humanity could be records of natural disasters observed by the Anunnaki. Alternatively, advanced technology could have been perceived as divine intervention, machines creating or controlling floods, ships capable of flight interpreted as gods descending. From this perspective, the line between myth and reality blurs, and the Anunnaki narrative becomes a chronicle of real events interpreted through the lens of ancient perception. Cultural transmission and knowledge. If the Anunnaki were indeed extraterrestrial visitors, their most significant legacy was knowledge. Sumerians learned mathematics and measurement, architecture and urban planning, laws, governance, and hierarchy, astronomy and celestial observation. This knowledge laid the foundation for later civilizations from Babylon to Egypt. Even today, the precision of Sumerian calendars, their astronomical records, and their administrative systems astonish modern scholars. Conclusion of Chapter 4. The alien theory forces a provocative question. What if the Anunnaki were not mythical gods, but advanced beings, capable of engineering, administration, and perhaps even bioengineering? Whether literal or allegorical, the myths serve as enduring reminders of a civilization that believed the stars held more than light. They held knowledge, power, and destiny. As we move to Chapter 5, we will explore how the Anunnaki left traces across civilizations through symbols, myths, and mysterious artifacts, evidence that some believe connects the Sumerians to cultures around the world.
Symbols across civilizations, winged discs, and radiant figures. One of the most common symbols associated with the Anunnaki is the winged disc. Depicted on ziggurats, seals, and tablets, it often features a central figure flanked by wings, sometimes holding rods or rings. In Mesopotamia, this represents the authority and presence of a god descending from the heavens. In Egypt, similar motifs appear with Ra and other solar deities. In Persia, the Fravahar shows a winged figure symbolizing divine power and guidance. To the untrained eye, these similarities might appear coincidental. But to those studying the diffusion of myths, these repeating motifs suggest either shared cultural memory or a singular influence. The Ankh and life symbols. The Ankh, the Egyptian symbol of life, bears remarkable resemblance to Sumerian motifs of eternal life and divine guidance. Both cultures depict divinity as the bearer of life-giving knowledge, often associated with celestial authority. Such parallels extend beyond Egypt and Mesopotamia. In the Americas, certain Olmec and Maya carvings display humanoid figures with radiant headdresses or symbols of power and life. In India, Hindu deities are frequently depicted with multiple arms and divine tools, reminiscent of Sumerian gods wielding authority through symbolic implements. Could these similarities point to a common origin story,
perhaps rooted in the Anunnaki themselves? Sacred geometry and architecture. The Anunnaki myths emphasize order, proportion, and alignment with the stars. Ziggurats, for instance, were not random constructions. They followed precise measurements, often aligning with celestial events. Similar patterns appear worldwide. Pyramids of Egypt aligned to Orion's belt. Teotihuacan in Mexico, streets aligned to celestial bodies. Stonehenge in England, solstice alignments. Was this knowledge passed down through independent innovation or guided by those who had traversed the stars before? Shared mythological motifs. Across civilizations, myths recount strikingly similar stories. Great floods wiping out humanity. Divine beings teaching humans arts, agriculture, and governance. Sky gods descending to Earth to shape culture. Examples include the Epic of Gilgamesh and its flood story, the Noah story in the Hebrew Bible, the Maya account of the gods bestowing knowledge to humans. Hindu epics describe celestial beings called devas interacting with humans. The repeated appearance of these themes across continents, centuries apart, raise profound questions. Are they purely archetypal, arising independently from human psychology? Or could they be memories of the Anunnaki themselves, encoded in human consciousness? Symbolic artifacts. Certain artifacts hint at technology, ritual, or understanding beyond their apparent age. Sumerian cylinder seals depict gods with tools and vehicles. Egyptian reliefs show flying discs above the pharaoh. South American carvings suggest knowledge of astronomy and advanced mechanics. While mainstream scholars interpret these as symbolic or ceremonial, alternative theorists see consistent patterns suggesting a unifying influence. Could the Anunnaki's impact have been so profound that humanity encoded it in the universal language of symbols?
Symbols across civilizations, winged discs, and radiant figures. One of the most common symbols associated with the Anunnaki is the winged disc. Depicted on ziggurats, seals, and tablets, it often features a central figure flanked by wings, sometimes holding rods or rings. In Mesopotamia, this represents the authority and presence of a god descending from the heavens. In Egypt, similar motifs appear with Ra and other solar deities. In Persia, the Fravahar shows a winged figure symbolizing divine power and guidance. To the untrained eye, these similarities might appear coincidental. But to those studying the diffusion of myths, these repeating motifs suggest either shared cultural memory or a singular influence. The Ankh and life symbols. The Ankh, the Egyptian symbol of life, bears remarkable resemblance to Sumerian motifs of eternal life and divine guidance. Both cultures depict divinity as the bearer of life-giving knowledge, often associated with celestial authority. Such parallels extend beyond Egypt and Mesopotamia. In the Americas, certain Olmec and Maya carvings display humanoid figures with radiant headdresses or symbols of power and life. In India, Hindu deities are frequently depicted with multiple arms and divine tools, reminiscent of Sumerian gods wielding authority through symbolic implements. Could these similarities point to a common origin story, perhaps rooted in the Anunnaki themselves? Sacred geometry and architecture. The Anunnaki myths emphasize order, proportion, and alignment with the stars. Ziggurats, for instance, were not random constructions. They followed precise measurements, often aligning with celestial events. Similar patterns appear worldwide. Pyramids of Egypt aligned to Orion's belt. Teotihuacan in Mexico, streets aligned to celestial bodies. Stonehenge in England, solstice alignments. Was this knowledge passed down through independent innovation or guided by those who had traversed the stars before? Shared mythological motifs. Across civilizations, myths recount strikingly similar stories. Great floods wiping out humanity.
divine beings teaching humans arts, agriculture, and governance, sky gods descending to Earth to shape culture. Examples include the Epic of Gilgamesh and its flood story, the Noah story in the Hebrew Bible, the Maya account of the gods bestowing knowledge to humans. Hindu epics describe celestial beings called devas interacting with humans. The repeated appearance of these themes across continents, centuries apart, raise profound questions. Are they purely archetypal, arising independently from human psychology? Or could they be memories of the Anunnaki themselves, encoded in human consciousness? Symbolic artifacts. Certain artifacts hint at technology, ritual, or understanding beyond their apparent age. Sumerian cylinder seals depict gods with tools and vehicles. Egyptian reliefs show flying discs above the pharaoh. South American carvings suggest knowledge of astronomy and advanced mechanics. While mainstream scholars interpret these as symbolic or ceremonial, alternative theorists see consistent patterns suggesting a unifying influence. Could the Anunnaki's impact have been so profound that humanity encoded it in the universal language of symbols?
The spread of kingship. Another element connecting civilizations is the concept of divinely sanctioned kingship. In Sumer, kingship descended from heaven, legitimized by the gods. Egyptian pharaohs were considered divine intermediaries. The Maya and Aztec rulers claimed descent or favor from celestial beings. These parallels suggest that the idea of authority deriving from higher beings is more than coincidence. It reinforces the notion that humanity, across cultures, has a shared memory of interaction with superior intelligences. Linguistic and numerical connections. Proponents of ancient astronaut theory point to early mathematics and language as evidence of Anunnaki influence. The Sumerians used base 60 counting, influencing time divisions still used today. Astronomical observations were encoded in cuneiform and symbolic language. Certain glyphs in distant civilizations resemble Sumerian ideograms. While skeptics argue for independent invention, the recurrence of precise systems of measurement, numerology, and celestial tracking globally raises the question, could someone have taught humans these foundational concepts? Mystical continuity. Beyond physical artifacts and myths, there is a continuity of spiritual or mystical motifs. Gods descending from the sky, knowledge hidden in sacred texts, humanity as a creation of higher beings. These motifs permeate religious and mythological traditions worldwide, from the Middle East to Mesoamerica to Asia. They form a tapestry that suggests a deep, enduring memory of beings who came from above to shape human destiny. Summary of Chapter 5. The symbols, myths, and motifs shared across civilizations hint at something extraordinary. Whether interpreted as archetypes, coincidences, or real historical influence, they point to a consistent narrative. The Anunnaki, as described by the Sumerians, may have left a legacy that transcends time, embedded in culture, architecture, and art around the world. As we move to Chapter 6, we will examine the debate between skeptics and believers, exploring both the scientific explanations and the provocative possibility that these symbols preserve real encounters with beings from beyond our world.
Debunking or hidden truths. Up to this point, we have explored the Anunnaki, their arrival, and the symbols they left behind across civilizations. Yet, as compelling as these stories may be, they are not without controversy. Mainstream historians, archaeologists, and linguists have long debated the validity of these claims. Are the Anunnaki myths literal accounts, allegories, or modern misinterpretations of ancient texts? Chapter 6 examines the skepticism and counter-arguments, weighing them against the possibility of hidden truths. Skepticism in archaeology. Many archaeologists argue that attributing human progress to extraterrestrial beings underestimates humanity's capabilities. Sumerians were innovative and resourceful. Early agriculture, city planning, and writing could emerge naturally from environmental necessity and social cooperation. The sudden appearance of cities and technologies may reflect gaps in our archaeological record rather than divine intervention. Skeptics highlight translation issues in Sumerian texts. Words interpreted as ships or flying machines could simply describe temples, ceremonial objects, or metaphors for divine power. Likewise, numbers in the king lists, sometimes thousands of years, may be symbolic or represent dynastic sequences rather than literal reigns. Linguistic controversies. Critics of Zecharia Sitchin's interpretations emphasize linguistic errors. Sitchin translated Sumerian words in unconventional ways to support his extraterrestrial hypothesis. Many scholars argue that his methodology selectively interpreted texts to fit a preconceived narrative. Yet even with these critiques, certain patterns persist. References to beings descending from heaven, detailed accounts of divine instruction in law, architecture, and astronomy, complex genealogies of gods that intersect with historical rulers. Could these elements be purely symbolic, or do they hint at a reality lost to time? The ancient astronaut debate. The idea of ancient astronauts challenges conventional views of history. Skeptics dismiss the theory as pseudoscience, emphasizing human ingenuity. Believers argue that humanity's sudden leaps, writing, urban planning, and astronomy may be evidence of external guidance. The debate is further complicated by recurring global myths. Flood narratives appear in Mesopotamia, the Bible, India, and Mesoamerica. Sky gods descending to teach humans appear in cultures worldwide. These parallels force the question, are myths independent inventions or memories of real interactions? Archaeological evidence examined. Physical evidence is sparse but intriguing. Ziggurats and temples aligned with celestial bodies suggest advanced astronomical knowledge. Mining techniques, metallurgy, and irrigation systems in Sumer show sudden sophistication. Cylinder seals depict humanoid figures with tools or vehicles that could be interpreted as technological. Skeptics argue that these are conventional innovations explained by trial, error, and observation. Yet the consistency, precision, and sudden emergence of these advances remain difficult to explain completely. Genetic engineering, myth or reality? One of the most controversial aspects of the Anunnaki narrative is the creation of humans. Sumerian texts describe Enki mixing clay with divine blood to create mankind. Modern proponents suggest this is a metaphor for genetic manipulation. Skeptics counter, there is no physical evidence of extraterrestrial DNA. Believers argue that ancient myths may preserve memory in symbolic language, encoding knowledge in ways we are only beginning to understand. Floods, catastrophes, and memory. The flood myth appears across cultures, often linked to divine judgment. Some researchers suggest these myths could be records of actual catastrophes, such as regional flooding events in Mesopotamia around 2900 BCE. If the Anunnaki were guiding humanity, could the flood represent an intervention, a lesson, or even a controlled disaster? Skeptics maintain natural disasters are enough to explain the narratives. Believers counter that the recurrence of similar themes globally implies more than coincidence.
Psychological and cultural explanations. Some scholars propose that humans naturally personify the unknown. Gods, spirits, and celestial beings are projections of human psychology. Stories of descent from the sky may reflect awe of the cosmos rather than actual visitors. Repetition of similar myths across cultures could result from shared cognitive patterns. Yet, even within these frameworks,
The sheer consistency and specificity of the Anunnaki accounts remain remarkable. Hidden knowledge or misinterpreted records. If the Anunnaki myths are neither purely symbolic nor entirely literal, what remains? Some suggest a middle ground. The Sumerians may have recorded events or influences they did not fully understand. Perhaps they witnessed advanced technology and interpreted it through their cultural lens. Perhaps knowledge was passed through unknown intermediaries, leaving myths behind. The ambiguity persists. The tablets give us names, places, and actions, but they do not provide conclusive evidence of extraterrestrial origin. Yet the persistence of the Anunnaki story suggests that ancient humans themselves regarded it as truth worth recording in detail. The allure of mystery. Why do these theories captivate the modern imagination? They challenge assumptions about human origins. They suggest that civilization, technology, and knowledge may not be entirely our own. They connect disparate cultures through shared myths and symbols, implying a global narrative. The allure lies not in certainty, but in possibility. The Anunnaki are, in a sense, placeholders for humanity's curiosity, symbols of a past we may never fully understand. Summary of Chapter 6. The debate over the Anunnaki forces us to confront profound questions. Were they literal visitors, divine beings, or mythological constructs? Do the similarities across cultures reflect shared memory or archetypal storytelling? Can human ingenuity alone explain the sudden leaps in civilization? While skeptics emphasize natural explanations and critical analysis, the intrigue of hidden truths persists. The Anunnaki narrative remains one of history's most compelling mysteries, straddling the line between mythology, history, and speculation. As we move into Chapter 7, we will examine the enduring legacy of the Anunnaki, the symbols, myths, and knowledge that continue to shape human culture to this day.
Reflections and Legacy. As we enter the final chapter, we look not at myths or controversies, but at legacy, what the Anunnaki left behind, and how their stories continue to influence humanity today. Whether interpreted as gods, extraterrestrial beings, or symbolic figures, their impact is undeniable. The legacy of the Anunnaki is woven into culture, science, spirituality, and imagination. They remind us that human history is more than a sequence of dates and events. It is a story of wonder, discovery, and the unending quest to understand our origins. Civilization's foundations. The Sumerians, guided by the Anunnaki in myth, laid the foundations for civilization, urban planning and architecture, laws and governance, writing and record-keeping, astronomy and mathematics. Much of this knowledge spread to subsequent cultures, Babylonians, Assyrians, Egyptians, Greeks, and beyond. Even today, the principles of measurement, observation, and organization trace back to these early innovations. In this sense, the Anunnaki, whether real or symbolic, represent humanity's first encounter with the forces that shape civilization. Spiritual and cultural influence. The myths inspired religious systems, rituals, and art. Temples, ziggurats, and sacred spaces reflect divine architecture. Festivals, prayers, and ceremonies codified interaction with higher powers. Stories of gods guiding humanity provided moral and social frameworks. Across the globe, echoes of the Anunnaki can be found. Egyptian pharaohs as divine rulers, Mesopotamian-inspired myths in the Hebrew Bible, celestial beings in Hindu, Greek, and Mayan traditions. These influences suggest that the Anunnaki narrative transcended time and geography, becoming a universal template for human understanding of divinity and authority. Inspiration for science and exploration. Beyond religion, the myths inspired curiosity about the universe. Sumerians meticulously charted the stars, calculated planetary movements, and measured time. These efforts laid the groundwork for modern astronomy, mathematics, and scientific inquiry. The Anunnaki, as teachers of knowledge and myth, symbolize humanity's enduring fascination with the cosmos. They challenge us to look up, to question, and to seek answers beyond our immediate surroundings. Art, literature, and popular culture. The Anunnaki have left their mark on art, literature, and media. From ancient cylinder seals to modern books and films, they inspire stories of gods, aliens, and ancient mysteries. Works such as Zachary Sitchin's books, Ancient Aliens documentaries, and countless novels explore the interplay of myth and speculation. This cultural resonance underscores the power of narrative. Myths do not die. They evolve, inspiring generations to imagine worlds beyond the known. Symbolism in modern life. Even in contemporary society, the symbolism of the Anunnaki persists. Authority and governance often invoke divine or ethical legitimacy. Scientific and technological breakthroughs echo the gift of knowledge theme. Humanity's fascination with extraterrestrial life mirrors ancient stories of visitors from the sky. In this way, the Anunnaki are not merely historical or mythical figures. They are archetypes, shaping our understanding of civilization, progress, and morality. Philosophical reflections. The stories of the Anunnaki invite reflection on fundamental questions. What does it mean to be human? How do knowledge, power, and guidance shape society? Could our history be influenced by forces beyond our perception? Whether one believes in literal extraterrestrial visitors or sees the myths as symbolic, they compel us to confront the unknown. The Anunnaki narrative is a mirror. It reflects both the ingenuity and the curiosity of humanity. Continuity across time. From the first cities of Sumer to the modern world, the Anunnaki narrative endures. It survives in myths, in architecture, in mathematics, and in the stories we tell our children. It is a testament to human memory, imagination, and the desire to understand origins. The repeated motifs of gods descending, knowledge given, humanity guided form a continuous thread connecting ancient and modern consciousness. Even if the historical reality of the Anunnaki is debated, the psychological and cultural impact is undeniable.
Legacy as inspiration. The true legacy of the Anunnaki may not lie in whether they were real or symbolic, but in what their stories inspire. Wonder at the universe, curiosity about the origins of civilization, reflection on human potential and destiny. In a sense, the Anunnaki continue to guide us, not with divine power, but through the enduring fascination they spark in our minds. They remind us that history is a living narrative, that knowledge can be passed across generations, and that mystery is an essential part of human growth. Closing reflection. As our journey concludes, the Anunnaki remain enigmatic. They are gods, teachers, engineers, or mythic archetypes. They may have descended from the heavens, or perhaps they are a metaphor for humanity's first leaps into knowledge and civilization. One thing is certain. The Sumerians preserved a vision of the cosmos and our place within it, a vision that still resonates today. The stars,
the ziggurats, the myths. They endure, whispering of beings who shaped the world, leaving humanity with tools, knowledge, and a story that spans millennia. Final visual cue. The camera pans over Mesopotamian ruins under a star-filled sky, slowly zooming out to show constellations and a distant horizon. Soft, cinematic music fades as the narration concludes. Whether gods, aliens, or the first architects of civilization, the Anunnaki remind us that every beginning carries a story, and some stories continue to echo across the ages. Anunnaki in modern thought and culture. As we move into the modern era, the story of the Anunnaki has not faded. It has transformed. Once confined to clay tablets and ziggurats, their legacy now permeates literature, science fiction, conspiracy theories, and popular culture. Chapter 8 explores how these ancient myths have shaped human imagination, inspiring ideas that bridge the past with contemporary curiosity about life beyond Earth. From myth to literature. The Anunnaki first captured the imagination of the modern world through scholarly and pseudo-scholarly works. Zecharia Sitchin's books, beginning in the 1970s, introduced the idea of the Anunnaki as extraterrestrial visitors in detailed, almost scientific narratives. Sitchin's work postulated that these beings engineered humanity, imparted knowledge, and shaped the foundations of civilization. While controversial, his interpretations popularized the concept of ancient astronauts and linked ancient myths with modern speculation. Television and documentaries. The rise of television brought the Anunnaki narrative to a global audience. Shows like Ancient Aliens reinterpreted Sumerian texts, connecting them to a worldwide pattern of sky gods, ancient technology, and unexplained knowledge. These programs combined cinematic storytelling with historical evidence, inviting viewers to question conventional explanations. The dramatization often highlights ziggurats as landing platforms, gods as engineers or scientists, and global mythic parallels as evidence of real events. Critics argue that entertainment value often outweighs academic accuracy, yet these shows fueled a renewed interest in ancient mysteries.
Video games, movies, and comics. The Anunnaki have also inspired fiction. Video games often depict ancient civilizations influenced by aliens, mirroring Sumerian motifs. Movies explore divine or extraterrestrial intervention, blending myth and science fiction. Comics reinterpret Anunnaki characters, portraying them as powerful beings with advanced technology and influence over humanity. These portrayals reveal the enduring appeal of the narrative. It merges history, mystery, and the possibility of the extraordinary. Influence on New Age thought. In addition to mainstream media, the Anunnaki have shaped New Age spirituality and esoteric traditions. They are cited as teachers, guides, or progenitors of human consciousness. Workshops, seminars, and spiritual literature explore humanity's connection to these ancient visitors. Some movements interpret the Anunnaki as catalysts for awakening, emphasizing self-knowledge and cosmic understanding. The myth becomes a metaphor for human potential, knowledge descending from above, inspiring growth and enlightenment. Conspiracy theories. The Anunnaki are central to many conspiracy theories. Claims that global elites are descended from or influenced by them. Theories about hidden knowledge encoded in religion, architecture, and history. Speculation that historical events were orchestrated under guidance from hidden powers. While often sensationalized, these theories reflect a deep human fascination with hidden truths, lost history, and the notion that humanity may not fully understand its own origins. Scientific skepticism and critique. Mainstream science continues to challenge the Anunnaki hypothesis. No physical evidence of extraterrestrial visitation exists. Textual interpretations can be highly subjective. Cultural and psychological explanations can account for mythic similarities. Yet even critics acknowledge the importance of the myths as cultural records, illustrating how ancient peoples sought to understand their world, the stars, and their place within it. Bridging past and present. Despite debate, the Anunnaki continue to serve as a bridge between ancient civilizations and modern curiosity. They invite us to examine how knowledge is preserved across generations, how myth reflects human experience and imagination, how the unknown inspires exploration and storytelling. In this way, the Anunnaki remain relevant, not as definitive proof of extraterrestrial contact, but as a lens through which we explore human history, culture, and aspiration. Lessons from the Anunnaki. The modern fascination with the Anunnaki reveals several lessons. Curiosity drives discovery. Humans have always sought explanations for the unknown. Myth preserves memory. Stories can encode historical events or insights in symbolic form. Cultural continuity is powerful. Symbols, myths, and stories travel across time, shaping civilizations long after their origin. Imagination inspires progress. Speculation about the past fuels creativity in science, technology, and art. Whether one views the Anunnaki as literal beings, mythic archetypes, or allegories, they remain an enduring symbol of humanity's quest to understand its own beginnings. Conclusion of Chapter 8. The Anunnaki's presence in modern thought reflects an enduring fascination with the unknown. They are at once historical, mythical, and imaginative, an intersection of narrative, belief, and possibility.
Mysteries that remain. As we enter Chapter 9, we confront the questions that remain unanswered. Even after thousands of years, the Anunnaki continued to provoke curiosity, debate, and speculation. From ancient tablets to modern media, the mysteries surrounding them are as compelling as they are elusive. Why do these stories persist? What secrets might the Sumerians have recorded? And what lessons, if any, can humanity draw from the myths of these enigmatic beings? Unsolved historical questions. The Sumerian texts provide astonishing detail, but gaps remain. The king list records rulers with impossibly long reigns. Certain tablets describe advanced technologies or celestial events that defy conventional explanation. Some narratives are incomplete, fragmented, or open to multiple interpretations. These ambiguities leave room for speculation. Were the Anunnaki truly visitors, or do these gaps reflect metaphorical storytelling? The absence of definitive evidence is not proof of absence, yet it is a reminder that history is often incomplete, leaving mysteries that endure. Archaeological enigmas. Several archaeological discoveries continue to fascinate researchers and theorists alike. Ancient Sumerian ziggurats precisely aligned with celestial bodies. Cylinder seals depicting figures with wings, rays of light, or devices not understood in context. Excavated artifacts suggesting sophisticated metallurgy or mathematical understanding. While mainstream explanations attribute these phenomena to human innovation, the recurrence and consistency of these patterns are striking. They hint at knowledge, observation, or influence that may be beyond what we traditionally credit to early humans. Visual cue. Animated map highlighting key Sumerian sites, ziggurats, and artifact locations with celestial overlays. The question of Nibiru. One of the most debated elements of the Anunnaki narrative is Nibiru, the supposed home planet of the visitors. Its orbit, visibility, and physical existence remain speculative. Sitchin's hypothesis connects Nibiru to periodic Earth visits and resource extraction, but critics argue it lacks astronomical evidence. Yet Nibiru remains embedded in popular imagination. It symbolizes the idea of distant forces influencing Earth, the unknown realms beyond our perception, and the enduring allure of cosmic mysteries. Lost knowledge. Many theorists speculate that much of the Anunnaki's knowledge was lost over time. The destruction of tablets, libraries, and cities has erased much of the Sumerian record. Floods, wars, and cultural transitions contributed to gaps in historical memory. If the Anunnaki imparted advanced knowledge, how much has humanity truly inherited? Could there be remnants in astronomy, mathematics, engineering, or spirituality that remain obscured, waiting to be rediscovered? Parallels in global mythology. Across continents, myths echo the Sumerian stories. Floods in Mesopotamia, the Bible, India, and the Americas. Sky gods descending to guide humanity. Divine instruction in agriculture, governance, and astronomy. These parallels suggest a universal fascination with divine or extraterrestrial guidance. They also raise a tantalizing possibility that a single source or a consistent phenomenon may have inspired stories worldwide. The enigma of the flood. The flood story, central to many Anunnaki myths, continues to captivate researchers and theorists. Archaeological evidence of large-scale flooding in Mesopotamia aligns with certain timelines. Myths describe divine warning, selection of survivors, and the reconstruction of civilization. Could the flood have been a natural disaster interpreted through myth, or does it preserve memories of deliberate intervention? While definitive answers remain elusive, the story underscores the interplay of human experience, memory, and narrative.
Continuing influence on science fiction. Modern imagination keeps the Anunnaki alive. Science fiction literature frequently draws on the concept of advanced visitors shaping human destiny. Films depict gods as technologically superior beings, echoing Sumerian accounts. Games and comics reinterpret these myths, merging history with speculative fiction. This continuous reimagining demonstrates the flexibility of myth and its capacity to inspire innovation, storytelling, and reflection on human potential. Skepticism and open questions. Despite fascination, skepticism remains essential. Can ancient texts be reliably interpreted in the context of modern science? Are supposed anomalies in technology, astronomy, or culture explainable by human ingenuity alone? How do we separate metaphor, legend, and potential historical reality? The challenge is not to dismiss the stories outright, but to critically engage with them, exploring possibilities while acknowledging limits. Legacy in human consciousness. The true mystery may not lie in evidence, artifacts, or celestial visits, but in the enduring presence of the Anunnaki in human consciousness. They shaped the way humans conceptualized divinity, knowledge, and power. Their myths encouraged observation, record-keeping, and intellectual curiosity. Their stories persist as reminders of humanity's capacity to wonder, imagine, and seek understanding beyond immediate perception. The unanswered question. Ultimately, the central question remains, what are the Anunnaki? Divine beings in myth? Ancient visitors from another world? Metaphors for knowledge, civilization, and human progress? No single answer satisfies all perspectives, yet the dialogue between skeptics and believers, historians and theorists continues, driving research, exploration, and imagination. The Anunnaki endure not only as a story from the past, but as an invitation to examine the unknown, question assumptions, and explore humanity's origins. Summary of Chapter 9. The mysteries of the Anunnaki persist because they touch on fundamental human questions. Where do we come from? How did civilization begin? Is there more to reality than we perceive? Whether as myth, metaphor, or memory of real events, the Anunnaki continue to captivate minds and imaginations. Their presence in global mythology, science fiction, and spiritual thought reflects humanity's enduring curiosity and the powerful role of stories in shaping our understanding of the world.
Final chapter, Echoes of the Anunnaki. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine the dawn of civilization. The rivers are wide and teeming, the land raw and untamed. Humanity is small, fragile, and uncertain, yet yearning for knowledge, for guidance, for connection. And then, emerging from the heavens, beings of light and power, the Anunnaki. Not merely gods, not merely myth, but a force that shapes the very course of life. They watch, they teach, they guide, and sometimes they test. Through their presence, humans learn to build, to cultivate, to reason, to dream. They teach us the value of knowledge, the weight of responsibility, the beauty of creation. In their stories, the seeds of our civilization take root, writing, cities, laws, and wisdom that echo across millennia. As centuries pass, their forms blur. They become symbols, stories whispered in temples, etched on clay tablets, carved into stone. Some call them gods, some call them aliens, some call them metaphors. Yet whether literal or imagined, their message endures. We are creatures capable of greatness, shaped by forces larger than ourselves, yet always carrying the spark of divine curiosity within. Perhaps the Anunnaki are not only in the past. Perhaps they live in the questions we ask, the inventions we create, the dreams we dare to dream. Every time we look at the stars and wonder, every time we build something beyond ourselves, we honor their legacy. The Anunnaki remind us that history is alive, not only in the stones, the tablets, or the myths, but in us. We carry their lessons in our hands, in our minds, in our hearts. They whisper, remember, you are part of something greater. You're capable of wonder. You are capable of creating worlds. And so the story does not end. It flows, like the Tigris and Euphrates, through time and memory. It reaches you, the observer, the listener, the dreamer, and in that moment you feel it, this pulse of history, mystery, and possibility that belongs to all of us. The Anunnaki are not only a tale of gods or aliens, they are a reflection of ourselves, our potential, and our endless journey toward understanding. And perhaps, somewhere among the stars, they are still watching, still guiding, still inspiring us to reach beyond ourselves.